I want to begin by welcoming our guests who are on the screen, and they're really not guests because, as Rebecca said, she knows Hannah Wexler from way back in the day when she was a Hebrew school student at CBI. And tonight we're going to be remembering Ben Shackney and his family. Of course, Ben and Linda were founding and beloved members, and their daughters are always a part of CBI. So welcome. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you during the service.
Thank you.
I want to begin with a prayer for Yom Hashoah. Dear God, give us words where there are no words. Help us find hope despite hate. Grant us the courage to face evil in our past and today. May all martyrs, survivors, resistors, and liberators be honored and remembered. May we be better Jews and better human beings because we remember and because fulfilling the Torah and their legacy, we choose life. You can see the tree of life.
The statistics of the Holocaust are numbing. Roma, gypsies, the disabled, gays, communists, and Jehovah's Witnesses were specifically targeted and decimated. Millions of others, including brave and righteous protesters, were killed. But Hitler's main focus was the final solution to the Jewish problem: genocide.
Hitler intended to kill every Jew and managed, usually with the support and enthusiastic participation of local populations, to kill 1 of every 3 Jews in the world. 2 out of 3 European Jews died in the Holocaust. The most incomprehensible statistic of all is that 1/4 of the Jews killed were children under the age of 15. 1.5 million children, about 1 million of them Jews, were murdered.
Tonight, we recall the facts. We won't let denial or ignorance prevail. We won't let it be forgotten that 11 million people died in the Holocaust, and that 6 million of those were Jews targeted for extinction.
To help us begin to comprehend these losses, we will listen to stories of those who perished and those who survived. Stories make unfathomable numbers a bit more real.
Tonight, we will hear from a family whose lives were touched and profoundly altered by the Holocaust. Melvina and Meir Shackney had 9 children. Their son, Ben, the last to be born in Czechoslovakia, was one of the founding members of CBI. Ben and Linda Shackney's daughters, Rebecca and Marlena, are here to remember their dad, who died this year, and tell us the remarkable story of his family.
Like many survivors, Ben did not talk a lot about his experiences. Yet the records, photos, and memories that he shared are enough to tell a story of profound bravery, sacrifice, and grace.
I keep forgetting. I'm Martin Hershkovitz, poet and adult child of Holocaust survivors. I keep forgetting the facts and statistics. And each time I need to know them, I look up books. These books line 12 shelves in my room. I know where to go to confirm the fact that in the Warsaw Ghetto, there were 7.2 people per room. And in Łódź, they allocated 5.8 people to each room. I forget over and over again that 1/3 of Warsaw was Jewish. And in the ghetto, they crammed 500,000 Jews into 2.4% of the area of the city. And how many bodies were they burning in Auschwitz at the peak of their production? 12,000 a day. I have to check and recheck. And did I dream that at 4 p.m. on the 19th of January, 58,000 emaciated inmates were marched out of Auschwitz? Was I right to remember that in Bergen-Belsen, from the 4th to the 13th of April, 1945, 28,000 Jews arrived from other camps? I can remember hundreds and hundreds of phone numbers I haven't phoned for 20 years and readily accessible. And I can remember people's conversations and what someone's wife said to someone else's husband. What a good memory you have, people tell me.
Tonight, we remember what is supremely difficult to remember. We highlight 6 experiences that the Shackney family went through, which were also shared by many of the 6 million. Confronting Nazism as a child or with children. Hiding. Encountering righteous Gentiles. Becoming refugees. Fighting against the Nazis. And practicing goodness and exercising freedom.
We begin with children. 15,000 children passed through the camp of Terezin from 1941 to 1945. 100 survived. One who did not survive was František Bas, born in 1930, deported to Terezin in 1942, murdered at Auschwitz in 1944. He left a poem. A little garden, fragrant and full of roses. The path is narrow and a little boy walks along it. A little boy, a sweet boy like that growing blossom. When the blossom comes to bloom, the little boy will be no more.
Now we pause for Joan Eben to light a candle. Lit. Thank you, Joan. Hiding, another experience of the Shackneys and so many. In the summer of 1942, in a small Moravian town in occupied Czechoslovakia, a Jewish family named Wolf was ordered to report to a nearby city for deportation. Instead, they chose to hide. Over the next 3 years, the family moved from various shelters in the forest to the homes of acquaintances as each location became dangerous. Otto Wolf was 15 years old when his family went into hiding. He kept a diary throughout this period, which is now housed at the Holocaust Museum in Washington. Here is one short and relatively happy entry that shows the constant fear and hunger they faced. July 6, 1943, Tuesday, the 55th week. We return to the forest at 3:30. Around 5:30 in the afternoon, we hear rustling. I climb a little higher up and see a person. He straightens up and sees me. When he recognizes me, he comes straight to us. It is Pluhar. He promises not to tell anyone, not even his wife. Then he leaves. We theorize extensively and are really concerned that he went to turn us in. We wait to see what will happen next. The women are down below, and Dad and I go into the clearing. We hear more rustling around 8 p.m. and conclude that he's returning with a policeman. What a surprise. He comes with a loaf of bread and a little schmaltz, chicken fat. He is assuming that we're hungry. What an outstanding deed. Dad gives him his black pants, and he's very happy. He says that he will return in the morning and bring milk and cigarettes. We are overjoyed and thank God that that's the way things turn out. At 10, we go cooking. There is bread as well as laundry soap. We make caraway soup with bread. The sky is glowering. On April 18, 1945, prisoners of war who were helping the German army conducted a raid where the Wolves were hiding. They captured Otto Wolf and 22 other men. Otto's sister immediately took over writing in the diary, hoping that he would one day return. After liberation, the surviving members of the Wolf family learned that Otto had been killed when a local man reported that he was Jewish. Otto was tortured by the Gestapo, but never revealed where his family was hiding or the names of the people who had helped them. In her absence, I will represent Renee, and I'll also represent Harriet Turk, who was originally slated to light, but wasn't able to be with us tonight.
Encountering righteous Gentiles. Our tradition teaches righteous Gentiles have a place in the world to come. The Shackney family and many others were aided by righteous Gentiles. Primo Levi wrote about his rescuer, Lorenzo Peron, and if this is a man, I believe that it was really due to Lorenzo that I'm alive today, and not so much for his material aid as for his having constantly reminded me by his presence that there still existed a just world outside our own, something and someone still pure and whole, for which it was worth surviving. Yad Vashem plants trees for righteous Gentiles and is published about them. Bystanders were the rule, rescuers were the exception. However difficult and frightening times were during the Holocaust, the fact that some found the courage to become rescuers demonstrates that freedom of choice existed and that saving Jews was not beyond the capacity of ordinary people throughout occupied Europe. The righteous among the nations teach us that every person can make a difference.
And now Joyce Schreiber is slated to light a candle. And just dwell on the light that may be in front of you, or that hopefully you can see on your screen. We've often thought of Baba Yar and prayed about Baba Yar, and Baba Yar is mentioned in our Martyrs Kaddish. But this year, Baba Yar takes on a special significance. It reminds us not just of the deaths then, but of the refugees now, of the people who survived Baba Yar, the few who did and ran and had to relocate, and the many who are fleeing today. In the pristine forests north of Kiev is a ravine, undisturbed beauty, a peaceful place renowned in the world as Baba Yar. There is little to hint of what happened there. No graves or signs or markers like those of their forefathers they passed on the road to Baba Yar. There is little to hint of what happened there. There is peace in the woods north of Kiev, but ghosts haunt the valley, restless souls of thousands of innocents roaming the ravine at Baba Yar. There is no evidence of the carnage, no witnesses to the pit and pyre, as thousands perished in the ravine at Baba Yar. In the pristine forests north of Kiev, there is no peace for those who knew what happened in the ravine at Baba Yar.
Prayer for refugees offered by Pope Francis. Merciful God, we pray to you for all the men, women, and children who have died after leaving their homelands in search of a better life. Though many of their graves bear no name, to you each one is known, loved, and cherished. May we never forget them, but honor their sacrifice with deeds more than words. We entrust to you all those who have made this journey enduring fear, uncertainty, and humiliation in order to reach a place of safety and hope. In caring for them, may we seek a world where none are forced to leave their home and where we can all live in freedom, dignity, and peace. Merciful God and Father of all, wake us from the slumber of indifference. Open our eyes to their suffering and free us from the insensitivity born of worldly comfort and self-centeredness. Inspire us as nations, communities, and individuals to see that those who come to our shores are our brothers and sisters. May we share with them the blessings we have received from your hand and recognize that together as one human family, we are all migrants journeying in hope to you, our true home, where every tear will be wiped away, where we will be at peace and safe in your embrace. The early morning sun will brighten our day, and yesterday with our foe will fade away. But if the sun delays and in the east remains, this song as motto generations must remain. This song was written with our blood and not with lead. It's not a little tune that birds sing overhead. This song, a people sang amid collapsing walls. With pistols in hand, they heeded to the call. Therefore, never say the road now ends for you, though leaden skies may cover over days of blue. As the hour that we long for is so near, our step beats out the message we are here. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst am letzten Weg. Himmeln bleiene verstellen bleie Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird abheugt und unser Trat mehr seinen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis Wiesenland von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. En wo gefallen ist a Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird durch unser Gwura, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgens und begilden uns dem Heind. Und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in der Kajor. Wie a Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht kein Liedl von a Fegel auf der Frei. Das hat a Feig zwischen Fall nicht dick gewöhnt. Das Lied gesungen mit na Gannes in der Hand. Das hat a Feig zwischen Fall nicht dick gewöhnt. Das Lied gesungen mit na Gannes in der Hand. Ta! Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst am letzten Weg. Ein Himmeln bleie verstellen bleie Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird abheugt und unser Trat mehr seinen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird abheugt und unser Trat mir seinen do.
Thank you, Cantor. And that, of course, is the partisan song. Some memories from Elie Wiesel about practicing goodness and exercising freedom. The Jews who lived in the ghettos under the Nazi occupation showed their independence by leading an organized clandestine life. The teacher who taught the starving children was a free man. The nurse who secretly cared for the wounded, the ill, and the dying was a free woman.
The rabbi who prayed, the disciple who studied, the father who gave his bread to his children.
The children who risked their lives by leaving the ghetto at night in order to bring back to their parents a piece of bread or a few potatoes. The man who consoled his orphan friend, the orphan who wept with a stranger for a stranger.
These were human beings filled with an unquenchable thirst for freedom and dignity. The young people who dreamed of armed insurrection, the lovers who a moment before they were separated talked about their bright future together, the insane who wrote poems, the chroniclers who wrote down the day's events by the light of their flickering candles. All of them were free in the noblest sense of the world, though their prison walls seemed impassable and their executioners invincible.
It was the same even in the death camps. Defeated and downcast, overcome by fatigue and anguish, tormented and tortured day after day, hour after hour, even in their sleep, condemned to a slow but certain death, the prisoners nevertheless managed to carve out a patch of freedom for themselves. Every memory became a protest against the system. Every smile was a call to resist. Every human act turned into a struggle against the torturer's philosophy.
Some managed to escape and alert the public in the free world. Others organized a solidarity movement within the inferno itself. One companion of mine in the camps gave the man next to him a spoonful of soup every day at work. Another would try to amuse us with stories. Yet another would urge us not to forget our names. One way among many others of saying no to the enemy, of showing that we were free, freer than the enemy.
A free man is never alone. The dictator is alone. The free man is the one who, even in prison, gives to the other prisoners their thirst for, their memory of freedom.
Ani mamin, ani mamina, ani mamin, be'emunah shelema, beviat HaMashiach, beviat HaMashiach ani mamin, ve'af al pi sheyitmameh Im kol ze ani mamin.
I mentioned earlier that Harriet couldn't be with us, and so I'm showing the candle again in her honor. She is well, but unable, regrettably, to join us tonight. I know she'll be very happy to share in these memories after the fact and to hear the meaningful memories that we're about to learn about. I'm going to turn things over to the Shackney family.
This is my dad on the right and his father when they first came over. But I'm going to tell you the story leading up to that now. I'm going to speak on behalf of me and my sister. She's not doesn't like to speak in public, and she helped me gather all the information that I have, as well as the pictures and documents. For those of you who don't know, my name is Rebecca Kasdan, and my father, Benjamin Shackney, was a member of Congregation B'nai Israel for about 50 years. He was raised Orthodox, but was not particularly religious in his adulthood. So many of you may not remember seeing him very often at temple. And if you met him, you may not know too much about him because he was a man of few words. But as you know from being here tonight, he was also a Holocaust survivor. When the rabbi asked me to speak tonight, it gave me motivation to try and learn more than the few stories I heard from my dad and other family members, none of whom either remembered or liked to talk about that time. One of my cousins, who passed away last year as a young adult, spent many hours interviewing members of our family, and she actually gathered 245 pages of transcripts that luckily she kept and put online, and my sister located them online. So I did read each and every page of those, and I did learn a bit more. But I also learned that memory can be tricky, and there's often more than one version of a story. So what I'm going to tell you about my father is the facts and stories that I've discovered. And although only some of them can be confirmed through documents, it is an amazing story of survival nonetheless. My dad was born January 14th, 1937 in Czechoslovakia on the Topla River, which is now Slovakia. His father was from Poland and his mother was from Hungary. He was one of 9 children and was the second youngest, with his last brother being born after the war. So he was the youngest during the time of the war. When Nazi Germany invaded and occupied Czechoslovakia in 1939, my dad was 2 years old. His father, my grandfather, Major, who you see in the picture here, owned a farm and a garden where he grew scallions, carrots, lettuce, cabbage, and corn, among other things. They were very self-sufficient. His occupation and job was to buy supplies such as fruits, nuts, feathers, and then crate them into boxes and sell them to factories. He supposedly traveled by horse and wagon and knew many people and places throughout the entire country. The family was middle class and was well respected in town before the war. Here is where the stories aren't so clear. There is one famous story of my dad among our extended family when he was thought to be about 4 years old. I'm not sure if the years all line up, but supposedly the police or soldiers came to look for the men who they would be taking away to the labor camps, and they were looking for his older brother, who was an adult at that time, I think around 18. Supposedly the police came to look for the men, and the story goes that to elude them, his older brother Samuel was hidden in a basement under the floor. And the story that I heard all my life was that my dad was just playing over that space, and that by chance was what prevented them from finding him. And then after he died, I think at one of the shivas we had, a relative told another version of the story where my dad was very aware of what was going on and purposely stood over the spot, and that's what saved him. So my dad remembers being told the stories but couldn't remember himself what actually happened, but some version of that story. Unfortunately, this older brother Samuel was eventually taken away to Auschwitz, and records show that he died there at age 20. There are also a couple of versions of the story of his death. His family was told that he died on an electric fence, and one version of that story was that he was trying to escape. And the other version is that he was going to be made a capo where he would have to make decisions about other Jews, life and death decisions, and that responsibility was too much for him, and he may have committed suicide. But remarkably, this tragic event is only one part of our family's history. And my grandfather was a remarkable man. It was his intelligence and kindness and respect he earned and his knowledge of the surrounding towns that likely saved the rest of the family. The story that's been passed down to me is that before the war, my grandfather, I think when you guys are talking about righteous Gentiles, that this is a story that's been passed down from our family as well. One of our most meaningful Holocaust stories is that my grandfather had his farm and he saw a man stealing from the farm. The man saw that he was caught, but my grandfather didn't stop him, recognizing that he may need food. When the rumors started that the Nazis were coming to take people away, it was supposedly this former thief who came and warned my grandfather that they needed to leave. Based on this, my grandfather realized it wasn't safe to stay on the farm, and he came up with a plan. He decided it was too dangerous to keep everyone together. My dad's two oldest sisters, Hannah and Rizel, were already married. Hannah and her husband fled and lived on a tobacco farm. Rizel and her husband also escaped to a farm where they eluded the Germans for the remainder of the war. His last two sisters, Betty and Sarah, who were young teens, were sent to live on a farm with a Christian family. They were reportedly very well taken care of there, and the family even offered to adopt them. My dad's second oldest brother, Izzy, was an older teen, and he escaped into the farms as well and became a partisan who fought in the resistance and in the underground. This left my dad and his brother Morris, who was 2 years older than him. From what I have learned, my dad and his parents and his brother Morris first went to surrounding towns where people his father knew from his travels hid them for a day or two at a time. At some point, they met up with some other families that were running, and together they decided to band together and build a hut in the woods where they would hide. They pooled their resources and paid another farmer to secretly bring them food. It is unclear how many families were there or for how long they were there, but it appears it was for the duration of the war. My dad talks about he has a vague memory of that time, but he really doesn't remember. He remembers being with other families. He doesn't remember how long he was there. There also is a story of my grandmother being mute during that time, and that may be true. The next story of my dad's Holocaust story is equally fortuitous and again involves some righteous Gentiles, as we were talking about. One night, the farmer who had been helping them, who was not Jewish, was in a bar and heard two Nazis talking about a group of Jews they had discovered hiding in the forest and they were going to pick them up the next day. The farmer came to warn my dad and his family, and once again, they had to quickly plan on escaping. His older brother, Morris, remembers sleeping in the woods that night, and supposedly at dawn, they decided to sneak into town to find a friendly farmer my grandfather knew. They were stopped by the Germans and asked what they were doing. They said they were picking berries, and the German asked to see their papers. My grandfather reportedly gave them the only paper he had, which was a form to ship merchandise from his former business. The story goes that it was still dark enough that the German soldier could not see the paper, and he said to stay put while he went inside to check it. At this point, my grandparents took my dad in his brother's arms and ran away. It's not clear what happened for a short period after that. There's a story that my grandfather knew the station master at the train station. They hid in the attic there for a few days. They may have also went back to the hut for a day or two, but couldn't stay because there was no food anymore. But then supposedly they heard guns shooting from the town and felt it might be the Germans being chased away. The story goes that they headed to town, and by the time they got there, the soldiers had chased away the Germans, and that is how we were told they got saved. And this around 1945, I believe. From there, they went to a displaced persons camp in Germany. Sadly, my sister Hannah had been found on the tobacco farm. Someone reported them, and with her and her husband were in hiding, and they were sent to Auschwitz. Her husband was killed there, but Hannah did survive his sister. She was an amazing seamstress, and it's supposedly this skill which kept her alive, although she really never talked about that time in her life. My dad's family was in that displaced persons camp for about 1 or 2 years. And my dad has a couple of specific memories, but that he said, just he told me about a memory of being given chocolate by the American soldiers. But this is also where we suspect, or we're told, the reunification occurred. By some miracle, which I don't know the details of, all of the other brothers and sisters found each other in Germany, and my dad's youngest brother, Rudy, was born there in the displaced persons camp. They supposedly tried to get to Belgium, but did not have the correct papers. They found a relative to sponsor them in New York, and in January of 1947, when my dad was 11, they went to America by boat, the SS Marlin. My dad and his brothers, when interviewed as older adults, could not agree who was on that boat. But amazingly, we were able to locate records of the ship, and both of his parents and all of his 7 siblings, except for his oldest brother who died, and his sister, Rizel, who went to Israel with her husband, were on that ship. For only one member of a 10-member Jewish family to not survive the Holocaust, and for them all to find each other, is nothing less than a miracle. When they got to New York, we were told the newspapers wanted to do a story on them, but their sponsor did not want to cause commotion. In New York, the whole family lived together in a tenement on Norfolk Street in Manhattan. There was reportedly no bathroom in the apartment, but only one on each floor. My grandfather, experienced in business, started a feather business in America. First, they made sleeping bags for the army and then down coats and jackets. And when he died, my dad's brothers, Morris and Izzy, took over that business. My father, as I mentioned, was raised religious and was also quite smart. He went to yeshiva growing up and then went on to Yeshiva University. He became a computer programmer when this field was very new, and he met my mother when they were working together in New York City. I was born in 1972, and right around this time is when my parents moved to Emerson and have been there ever since. My dad developed a love for tennis and for bridge. He was very active in doing his own stocks in the stock market and very successful in that. And he also gave to many charities. And my sister, whose mail is now sent to my dad's mail is now sent to my sister's house, is now getting daily mail of pads of paper and stickers and all other things from all the charities that he donated to. And we do feel that this story of the Holocaust helped shape him, and all the righteous Gentiles who helped him along the way, that he's been paying it forward with other people as well, including people amongst our families and people that he did not know. I want to thank the rabbi for this opportunity to honor my dad and his memory and the memory of all people who survived and perished during the Holocaust. And I just have a couple pictures to show you guys. This was an identification card, like a passport when they came over. And this is actually the American card from the ship. We got a lot of these documents. My cousin found them on Ancestry, and when she was looking at DNA, there's a little old document. And this is the actual list of the ships, and you can see on the bottom, the last 3 are when he came over. His parents were in their 40s. And then the rest of the family is all here. My dad was 9, it looks like, and then they range in age from 9 to 23, all the siblings, when they came over. And that's how we actually have proof of who was there and that they all did find each other and come over on that ship together. This is a picture that was taken, I would think, early when they first came, because the baby is Rudy, who was 1 when he came over. So I would think this is soon after they came over. My dad is on the right in the hat. And this is his as he became a citizen of the United States, I think as a young teen. And just a close-up of that picture of him. And as he sort of developed, and I'm not exactly sure where this is, like as he went into yeshiva and yeshiva university and continued his education. And this is met my mom and got married to her. There's another little picture of them early in their on a vacation, early in their marriage. And then I skip about 40 years and all of our childhood, because I didn't have the pictures into my kids. And there's my dad probably about 15 years ago, because these are my 2 sons, David and Russell. Russell, the baby in this picture, is now 16, and my other son, David, is now 18. So this is one of our Hanukkahs where my dad was a great grandfather and came up to New Jersey until he stopped driving, and when we would come down to see him. And here's, as we got a little older, my husband Nick and my sister and the kids and my aunt Lucy. And we spent all the Jewish holidays together: Rosh Hashanah, Passover, Hanukkahs. Oftentimes we'd all see each other. Again, this is my now 18-year-old with my dad at my house in Massachusetts, and my now 16-year-old he basically would do whatever we wanted to do, go to the park, go anywhere where the kids wanted to go. And this is the last picture. My dad again had 9 siblings, 8 of which survived. And we, before COVID, had a get together at a Jewish deli in New York. And this is only a tiny fraction of the descendants of those 8 siblings, just the people who were happened to be able to get to New York during that time. And they're now spread all over the US and the Midwest and all different places and many generations down. So his family was incredibly lucky. No, thank you. And it was a really great opportunity to just see what other information I could find to be able to think about talking here today. So that was a really nice way that I could do this soon after my dad passed away in January.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for a really glorious presentation. And it all started because I heard that story about how a righteous Jew inspired a righteous Gentile, being forgiving of a hungry person stealing and building up goodwill that led to perhaps the whole family being saved.
Yes.
Really remarkable, remarkable story of goodness. And thank you so much for sharing the beautiful photos and that last one at the deli. My goodness. They got a lot of good business from you that night. That is great. I'm going to turn us back to the order of service because we still have our final prayers and most of our candlelighting to do. Thank you so much also because I know that it was a group effort in the family. I want to thank all the Shackneys for your commitment to bringing forth the story. Thank you, Marlene, and thank you to your beautiful departed cousin.
We light candles to honor the dead and to ignite a spark of hope for the future. Interspersed with the ancient Aramaic memorial prayer or Kaddish are the names of infamous locations where Jews were tortured and executed for no other crime than being Jewish.
Going-
Yitkadal,
Kishinev.
Yitkadash,
Warsaw.
Warsaw. We'll pause now as Pam lights a candle. And Bob.
Shemei Rabbah.
Auschwitz.
And we pause as Hannah lights a candle.
Yalma divrach yiroteh. Yamlech malachoteh. B'chayechon u'v'yamechon.
Pause for David Spatz and Dave Bloom to light their candles.
It's not muted.
U'v'chayed echol Beit Yisrael. Bahagala, Bahagala, Uvizaman Karib. V'emru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mivorach. Leolam uliolmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach.
We pause for another candle from Rochelle and from Ellen.
V'yitbar v'yitrom ma'am. V'yitnaseh v'yitadar
To raise
Raising
v'yitale v'yitalal
Treblinka.
Demei dekudasha brichu. Oh yeah, 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 Leila.
Vilna.
Mikol birchata v'shirata.
Usha.
Tush bechata v'nechemata.
Masada.
Ada. Pause as Wally lights a candle.
Damiran b'yoholemam. V'maruhu. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Rebecca lights. Jerusalem.
Yerushalayim.
Marlena lights.
V'maruhu amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba Mitzemaya. Chayim Aleinu. Yal Kol Yisrael v'Hebru Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mromav. Hu Ya'aseh Shalom. Aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael. V'imru Amen. May the one who makes peace and harmony in the heavens help us to make peace here on earth. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I just wanted to mention one more place which wasn't on the list. My grandfather passed away in Mauthausen. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks. May their stories and their sacrifices always be remembered, and may their memories be for a blessing.
Amen.
The power to light a candle is a gift. We dare not take this or any of our rights or luxuries for granted. Rabbi Leo Beck wrote about his meetings with fellow inmates at Theresienstadt. It was dangerous for us to meet at night. There was an additional danger as well. During the day, these men were involved in terrible backbreaking work, and after such work, when they needed rest, they came together at night to listen to lessons and lectures, which could have weakened their bodies further. I shall never forget those meetings. We would assemble in darkness. To light a candle there or even a match would have brought immediate disaster upon us. We spoke about matters of the spirit and eternal questions about God, about Jews in the world, about the eternity of Israel. In the midst of the darkness, I sensed the light in the unlit room, the light of Torah. More than once, I could not see their faces, but I did see great spiritual light. They lit the way.
We are the lives that were spared from the ashes.
We are the lives that have sprung from the ashes.
We are the ones who will continue to speak of the Holocaust to the next generation,
knowing that they will speak of it to their children.
and they in turn to the generations that follow.
May we learn and know, prevent and protect.
May we remember and honor the lives that were sacrificed. El male rachamim, shochein v'meromim, v'hamsei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashechina. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, לנשמות כל אחינו בני ישראל, שנטבחו בשואה, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנחנקו ושנשרפו ושנהרגו, שמסרו את נפשם על קידוש השם, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. ואדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. To the souls of our brothers and sisters who perished in the Shoah, men, women, and children of the house of Israel, who were slaughtered and suffocated and burned to ashes, we count as martyrs who lift up your holy name. May their memory endure and inspire deeds of charity and goodness in our lives. May their souls thus be bound up in the bond of life. May they rest in peace. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Tonight is one of the nights between Passover and Shavuot when we count the Omer. And as you see on the chart in front of you, each day of the Omer, it represents a combination of divine qualities. Yesterday was day 8, so today will be Gevura Shebegvura, the strength that is in strength, which may sound redundant, but really it isn't. To exercise strength, you need a lot of different qualities. And Gevura doesn't just mean strength, it means sometimes restraint, discipline, boundaries. To create those kinds of qualities, you need many different qualities. You need a certain inner peace. You need a certain amount of loving kindness. You need a certain level of energy or acceptance, but you also need strength itself. The strength of strength is, I think, what Holocaust survivors have shown. And the biblical character who is associated with the strength of strength is Isaac, who was almost sacrificed, but in the end saved. I want to count the Omer with you, bearing in mind the extraordinary gift of strength, the extraordinary exercise of strength that so many people practiced in order to give the next generation a chance to survive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. May we count each day and make each and every day count. Hayom tish'a yamim shem shavua Echad U'Shnei Yamim LaOmer. Today is the 9th day of the Omer, which is the strength of heroism, of justice, of respect, of awe. We stand in awe of what people were able to survive, the bravery that they were able to practice, and how they have rebuilt lives so beautifully. Let's take just a final moment of silence before we greet each other and thank our wonderful, wonderful guests and speakers. It's such a tough service and so many difficult memories. But I have to just thank you so much for being here, and especially to the Kasdan/Shackney family. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see the Blooms again.
Listening here tonight, I don't think if I have the right words. Thank you to the families that did it. And I'm thanking my mother every day because she really gave birth to me every day in Auschwitz. And it's hard to believe to myself that a person after such horrors can still come out halfway normal. That's all that I wanted to say. It was beautifully done, but it's really heartbreaking that I myself have again to experience anti-Semitism, Jews hatred, sakana b'shvil Israel. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Rebecca and Marlena, for the story of your father's family. Your father was my poker buddy at CBI. And for a man of a few words, it made him a better poker player because he had a stoic face. He didn't make many facial grimaces or movements, and he played his cards very close to the vest. I often sat next to him at those card games, and we kibitzed, and we enjoyed one another's company. I'm going to miss your dad.
Thank you.
When the rabbi sent me this and I saw the Partizana Lied, the song of the partisans.
Yes.
And I sent her a note that I was crying all the way through to Raisin. So when I got to the Partizana Lied, which I actually learned in Camp Kinderveld, they all sang it. Zognit kein mol as they gestem letzten Weg. Don't say when you go the last way. And the very last verse, I added the word ta. And it's not in there, but it's in the song. And that says, so. Don't ever say again when you go on your last way. It was, for me, Rabbi, you did an amazing job with this. I mean, Shackneys, thank you so much. My parents are also survivors. They got lucky and they didn't make camp. I will tell you that this was really intense, Rabbi Ornstein. Thank you very much.
This was an incredible service. I've never been touched by a service like this before.
Incredible.
Incredible. And thank you to the Shackney families. And Hannah, you're a legend. It was wonderful seeing you earlier
As I am
today.
not a treasure. The treasures they bury.
Finally,
I'm
you're a
shocked.
treasure and a
I remember now. Hi, sweetheart.
finally, you are a treasure. Thank you so much, darling, for your words.
I love you. I miss you.
I love you too. I miss you too.
Well, I hope to see everybody again very soon. Shackney girls, if I can call you that, that's how your dad used to refer to you.
Sure.
Shackney girls, thank you so much. Please stay in
Thank
touch
you.
and be part of us always. And
Right.
Janine, it was wonderful to see you. I didn't get a chance to greet you till now. The Simons are here. Just so wonderful to see everybody. And thank you especially to Audrey, who made calls and helped organize some of our candle lighters and reached out to people. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Audrey.
you.
Thank you.
Rabbi Yashikoa.
Thank you all.
Thank
All
you.
הכבוד. And there are thousands of stories
Yeah,
that
no,
were not told.
both of my parents were born in Germany. So one of my grandfathers was in Theresen and the other one was in Dachau. And they were both deported and they came to the United States in 38, but, older generations, did not make it. So I consider they were very lucky.
You mean this?
Yep.
My
Yeah.
father was freed in Dachau.
My
Mhm.
father was arrested by the Nazis, escaped, came to America, was drafted and sent back to Germany to fight. And my father liberated Dachau.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's how I have this. This book is in the Holocaust Museum in DC.
Right,
Every single, I was a kid and I put stuff on and I was,
right, right.
but I will tell you that he told me a story. He was walking and a Muslim, Dave, just in case you don't know, was a skeleton, one of the
Right,
prisoners.
right, right.
Said to him, and he was speaking to soldiers walking, kennst Yiddish, kennst Yiddish. And my father stopped. He said, Avada.
Yeah.
Of course I speak Yiddish. And the man told him that in his town, he buried a Sefer Torah so the Nazis wouldn't find it.
Right,
And he begged my father to please have the authorities, or my father, dig
Right.
up the Torah so that it was back safe. And
right.
my father promised him, and the man died in his arms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Listen, we got very lucky with my family. My grandfather
Right.
was
No,
right. He was put into a shul in Baden-Baden. The shul was set on fire.
right. No, my father's father was a doctor and he had won the Iron Cross in World War One.
Exactly. Plenty of us, my grandfather with a long beard, he was a medic in World War One. He ran with the troops with a lange board and payas. He would run in World War One with the German army.
קשה להאמין, it's hard to believe that a human being can go through all this and survive.